The objections today are understanding what neurodiversity, neurodivergence means and a few different types. The examples I give will not be an exclusive list. Okay, how different sensory experiences, including lighting, sounds, and environmental noise, can affect individuals, and why recognizing these factors is essential for workplace safety. Practical steps to reduce sensory overload and create more inclusive, supportive environments. So how can you define neurodiversity? Neurodiversity is the idea that all human brains are naturally different and that there's no single correct way for the brain to work. It's a concept that views neurological differences such as those associated with autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, and Tourette's syndrome as variations to the human genome, similar to those with differences in ethnicity or gender. It encompasses the full range of the human brain function and cognitive styles. Key aspects of the definition include a spectrum of differences. Neurodiversity recognises that a wide range of human perceptions, thoughts, and responses to the world are natural. The neurodiversity movement, which grew out of the disability rights movement, seeks to move away from the idea that these neurological conditions are disorders that need to be cured. Instead, it emphasises that while these differences can present challenges in a world built for neurotypical people, they can also come with unique strengths and talents. So what's the difference between neurodivergent and neurotypical? A person whose brain functions in a way that diverges significantly from the societal standards is considered neurodivergent. Someone who doesn't have these neurological differences is neurotypical. The term neurodiversity itself describes a diversity of all human brains as a whole. Just as biodiversity refers to the variety of life on Earth, neurodiversity refers to the variety of the human mind. So I want you to imagine now that you see, hear, and feel everything the same as the boy did in the video. You're in an office, the overhead lights are bright, the patterns on the walls are busy, phones are ringing, people are talking, someone's just microwaved fish in the canteen area, and the smell's wafting through. On top of all of that going on, you're also expected to work, keep a level, calm head, and not appear out of the ordinary to your colleagues. Simple experiences for a neurotypical person can place a neurodivergent brain in a fight or flight mode. The light flickering overhead could have the same involuntary feelings inside as if a lion were chasing them. Most adults will have learned to handle the sensory overload a lot better than the child did in the video. But this can still drastically affect how a person focuses on their work and can even lead to conflict with colleagues and unsafe meltdowns. This depicts the difficulty faced, but it will help later on in understanding why we need to put aids in place to assist people in reaching their full potential and keeping those people around them safe. Okay, so from a health and safety perspective, helping neurodivergent individuals reach their full potential is about much more than productivity. It is a fundamental part of risk management and mental well-being. When environments such as work are not adapted to support neurodiversity, the health and safety risks increase significantly. So this is why support is critical. One of them is prevention of chronic stress and burnout. Neurodivergent individuals often mask, which is hide their natural traits, to fit into neurotypical environments. Constant masking can lead to burnout, which is a state of physical and mental exhaustion that can lead to a loss of skills and long-term inability to function, leading to loss of productivity and even absences. Chronic stress is linked to cardiovascular issues, weakened immune system, and also digestive problems. A one-size-fits-all approach to safety can actually create hazards. Supporting neurodivergent potential means sensory safety as well. Reducing overwhelming noise or lighting and providing supportive aids prevents the meltdowns or shutdowns discussed earlier. Meltdowns and shutdowns could be dangerous in high-stake environments, for example, operating machinery or driving. And clear communication is key. Neurodivergent individuals may process instructions differently. Ensuring communication is clear, literal, and often written down prevents accidents caused by misunderstood safety protocols or unwritten rules. There is a direct correlation between a lack of support and severe mental health outcomes. When people are supported in using their natural strengths, their sense of worth increases, lowering the risk of depression. Proper support acts as a preventative measure against things like self-harm, which are statistically higher in neurodivergent populations who feel alienated or misunderstood. By helping an individual with neurodiversity reach their potential, organisations benefit from unique perspectives that can lead to safer, more efficient systems for everybody. Okay, so the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974 has the duty to make reasonable adjustments. Employers have a duty to ensure, so far as is reasonably practicable, the health and safety and welfare of all their work colleagues. This includes psychological health and well-being. Failing to provide reasonable adjustments or creating an unsupportive environment for neurodivergent employees can lead to stress, anxiety, and other mental health issues, potentially breaching their health and safety duties. Risk assessments. So consider neurodiversity in workplace risk assessments, especially regarding stress, sensory overload, and communication. Reasonable adjustments are changes to the workplace, working arrangements, or equipment that help a neurodivergent employee overcome disadvantages related to their condition. The duty arises when an employer knows, or reasonably ought to know, that an employee has a disability and is placed at a disadvantage compared to a non-disabled person. You may notice me use the word disability. This is because neurodivergence is classed on paper as a disability due to the challenges it faces. Some neurodivergent people don't like the term and some do. So this section is purely for the legal facts. So some examples of reasonable adjustments. Modifying the premises, for example, a quiet zone or specific lower distant lighting. Adjusting work hours, flexible start and end times for when the person is more productive during the day. Providing auxiliary aids, screen readers, noise cancelling headphones, for example. Modifying job roles and reallocating duties. Providing additional training and support. Wording things differently can also help. And what times meetings are set to can also help. For example, if you've got a meeting set at 11 o'clock, somebody who is neurodivergent might not be able to do anything for those 2 hours because they're focused on that meeting at 11 o'clock. So it may be worth setting meetings for earlier in the morning or after lunch per se, so they've got that natural break and start times. However, not all changes are reasonable. What is reasonable depends on factors like the effectiveness of the adjustment, its practicality, cost, and the employer's resources. It's important to know that information about an employee's neurotype is sensitive personal data and it's covered under GDPR. It must be handled with strict confidentiality and only processed with a lawful basis, for example, with explicit consent for reasonable adjustments and legal obligation. Information should only be shared on a need-to-know basis and with the employee's consent. So a brief overview of common neurotypes. Difficulties often arise from a mismatch between the individual environment, not the inherent deficits. Autism spectrum condition. Autism, also known as autism spectrum disorder or ASD, is a developmental condition that affects how a person's brain is wired. It's a lifelong condition and a form of neurodiversity. The term spectrum is used because autism presents differently in every individual, with a wide range of strengths and challenges. The key characteristics typically involve differences in social communication and interaction, as well as restricted and repetitive behaviour or interests. People with autism may also have a different way of processing sensory information, such as sounds, lights, or touch. Their strengths focus on creativity, hyper-focus on interesting tasks, energy, resilience, and the ability to multitask sometimes. Potential challenges, if unsupported: social communication differences, sensory sensitivities, preference for routine, difficulty with abstract instructions or unwritten social rules, eye contact, and not understanding emotion. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, is a neurodevelopmental condition that affects how a person's brain functions, particularly with regard to executive skills like paying attention, controlling impulses, and managing energy levels. It's a lifelong condition, and while it's often diagnosed in childhood, symptoms can persist and look different in adulthood. ADHD is not a sign of laziness or a character flaw. It is a brain-based difference that can lead to challenges with organisation, time management, and emotional regulation. It is a spectrum disorder, meaning again it presents differently in each individual, with some people primarily experiencing inattention, others hyperactivity and impulsivity, and many a combination of both. The strengths include creativity, hyper-focused on interesting tasks again, energy, spontaneity, resilience, and again, sometimes the ability to multitask. Potential challenges if unsupported: difficulty with sustained attention on mundane tasks, impulsivity, time management issues, organisational difficulties, restlessness, and highs and lows. Dyslexia is a common neurodevelopmental learning disability that affects how the brain processes language. It's a lifelong condition that primarily causes difficulties with reading, writing, and spelling due to trouble with decoding, which is the ability to connect speech sounds to letters and words. This is not related to intelligence. People with dyslexia are often of average or above average intelligence and can have strengths in areas like creativity, problem solving, and visual thinking. While a person with dyslexia may read more slowly or struggle with spelling, with the right support and strategies, they can possess excellent verbal reasoning, creative thinking, problem solving, strong visual spatial skills, and big picture thinking. And dyspraxia, also known as developmental coordination disorder. It's a neurodevelopmental condition that affects a person's motor skills and coordination. It impacts the brain's ability to plan and execute a sequence of movements, leading to difficulties with tasks that require both fine and gross motor skills. This can manifest as clumsiness, poor balance, or trouble with everyday activities like tying shoelaces, writing, riding a bike, or even speaking. And the strengths, if they're supported: strategic thinking, empathy, determination, good verbal communication, and often creativity. So what is there to understand? To effectively support neurodivergent staff members, you need to understand that neurodiversity is a natural variation in how people's brains are wired. Individuals have different ways of thinking, learning, processing information, and interacting with the world. People should move away from the idea that there is a single normal way of working and instead focus on creating a workplace that's inclusive and accommodating for these differences. Individuality and communication. Neurodivergence is a spectrum, and each person's experience is unique. An accommodation that works for one person with a specific neurodivergence may not work for another. The most important thing is to have open, non-judgmental conversations with your employees. Ask them what they need to succeed and what adjustments would be helpful. Avoid using jargon, idioms, or metaphors that could be confusing. Be explicit with instructions and expectations. Providing information in both written and verbal formats can also be very helpful. Some neurodivergent employees may prefer written communication, while others prefer face-to-face meetings. Be flexible with how you communicate and allow for different levels of eye contact and social cues. Many neurodivergent people are sensitive to sensory input. This can include things like bright lights, loud noises, strong smells, or certain textures. Managers should be mindful of the physical workspace and consider accommodations like noise-cancelling headphones, a quieter workspace, or allowing for breaks in a low simulation area. Offering flexible work arrangements such as remote work or flexible hours can be beneficial. It allows employees to work when they're most productive and manage their energy levels. Many neurodivergent individuals thrive with structure. It can help to provide clear agendas for meetings, breaking down large projects into smaller tasks, and giving advance notice of changes to routines. Neurodivergent individuals often possess unique skills, such as a high level of creativity, attention to detail, or a different approach to problem solving. These strengths should be recognised and leveraged, tailoring roles and projects to allow employees to excel. Okay, An employee does not need a formal diagnosis to be considered for support. The entire team should receive training on neurodiversity. This helps to build awareness, reduce stigma, and equip everyone with the knowledge to create a truly inclusive workspace. Okay. So creating an inclusive culture, openness and respect, foster a culture where neurodiversity is understood, valued, and discussed openly without stigma, regular training for staff, and managers demonstrating inclusive behaviours and colleagues thinking twice of why. If an action's been done that's not understood, just take a second and maybe ask. Be explicit and avoid jargon and sarcasm or implied meanings. Follow up verbal instructions with written summaries. And think about the sensory considerations to your working environment as well. Clear expectations, so define the roles, responsibilities, and project goals precisely and written down. Break down tasks even into smaller tasks and manageable steps with clear deadlines. And focus on outcomes. Evaluate performance based on results and contributions, not just traditional methods of working. Okay, always ask and listen to collaborate with the individual. This is arguably the most crucial principle for supporting neurodivergent employees. Staff members should avoid making assumptions and instead engage in open, empathetic, and confidential conversations. The best way to understand an individual's need and preferences is to directly ask them, actively listen to their responses, and work with them to create a supportive plan that's tailored to their specific needs. This collaborative approach fosters trust and ensures the adjustments are genuinely helpful. The key takeaways: neurodiversity is a strength. The UK law requires reasonable adjustments. Communication, environment, and task structure are key areas for support. Always ask, listen, and collaborate with the individual. I do have some further resources on this slide as well, if anyone would like to do some more research. And the action points are to review your team's communication practices, consider potential environmental adjustments in your area, familiarise yourself with the reasonable adjustment process within your organisation, and create a personal risk assessment. Okay, that's everything then. Well, thank you everybody for listening today. And